Good afternoon. Welcome to the Kim Hammer Show. We are going to start off the show by listening to the president's address. He is addressing the nation now regarding the COVID-19. We will be joined by Congressman Bruce Westerman at 12:15. So for about 10 minutes, let's listen to the president.
Many of them have taken hits, and many of them are just, going forward. That their businesses have been great. Some have been very badly affected. Some haven't been affected at all, and frankly, some are doing very well. They continue to do very well. It's Walmart, as an example, has been really helpful to us. Doug McMillan, the head of Walmart, really helpful to us, and I guess I assume they're doing pretty well because people are certainly buying more than even a clip at Christmas by substantial numbers. Pretty amazing, but they're doing incredibly. They put on tremendous extra staff. You don't have empty shelves. A lot of things have happened that are very good. Restaurants, fast food executives, grocery stores, all retailers, literally all of them, in groups. And we spoke with the G7 leaders at length, as you know. You probably know about that. Spoke to many of the governors, spoke to almost all of the governors at conference calls and many of the governors individually. And very importantly, the religious leaders. We had a great conversation yesterday, the Vice President and myself, with the religious leaders of our country, many of the religious leaders, and we've had a number of them during the course of the last 2 weeks, actually. But yesterday we had a very significant call with the religious leaders of our country. I signed legislation providing American workers with paid sick leave and paid family medical leave at no cost to employers, and free testing for those who need it. The testing is going very well, and the Admiral will speak to that along with Tony. We're working quickly to pass additional legislation that will provide massive relief to small businesses and affected industries and give direct payments to our great workers and hardworking American families. There's never been anything like we're doing on the Hill right now. They're negotiating. Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, they're all up there. Kevin McCarthy and Nancy Pelosi. They're all negotiating, and everybody's working hard, and they want to get to a solution that's the right solution. I think we're getting very close. We've also announced that we've moved tax day from April 15th to July 15th, which is a big deal, giving businesses and individuals extra time to file and pay without interest or penalties. So we've moved the date way back, and so it'll be July 15th instead of your traditional April 15th. And very importantly, you will have a lot of time, but you're not going to have interest penalties or any kind of penalties by filing at that later date. HUD announced that foreclosures and evictions are suspended for single-family homeowners with FHA-insured mortgages for the next 60 days. And our great head of HUD, who's with us today, Ben Carson's going to say a few words in a moment. The Department of Education will not enforce standardized testing, which is another big deal, requirements for students in elementary through high school for the current school year. Not fair to do that. So we are waiving that. I would imagine it's probably the first time ever that's been waived, but I think it's only fair to the students and to the parents of the students. It is also waiving interest and other things that we're discussing right now on federally held student loans, and directed that borrowers be allowed to suspend their student loan payments without penalty for at least 60 days. And we'll be talking about student loans. Can I help the students? They're under a great burden right now. So we will be talking about that further, but we're waiving during the 60-day period various elements and very important elements on student loans, big subject. I signed an executive order invoking the Defense Production Act, as you all know, giving us powerful new authorities to help states, cities, and hospitals procure needed supplies. There's been a clear call to action to the private sector, and the call is made right here. It's been really pretty amazing what's happened with the private sector. They are really in sixth gear, I think, which has responded in full force, helping to produce and supply much-needed masks, swabs, sanitizers, ventilators, and everything else. There's a move on that's incredible right now. And by way of example, Hanes, everybody knows Hanes, great company, great consumer cotton products company, is retrofitting its manufacturing capabilities in large sections of their plants to produce masks. And they're in that process right now. And in my direction, the FDA has taken rapid steps to make these items available for medical use right now. I mean, most excitingly to me is what the FDA has done in order to get possibly a very successful number. It's not just one or two, number of therapeutics, medicines that can help people that are already sick, help people not get sick. And obviously, you know about the vaccine, and Tony will discuss that a little bit later, but the vaccine is moving along. But this is something that right now, this is what we really, it's incredible. And what the FDA has done, and Dr. Stephen Hahn, who's highly respected, came as just a highly respected man. He's been fantastic. He's only been here for a couple of months, and he's gotten thrown into the swim of it, and he's really standing up. But the FDA has really moved the mountains. I said it this morning. They moved mountains to get approvals on things that maybe work. We'll find out very soon, and won't take long. An example of the Pernod Ricard, which is this is really an example where we're repurposing alcohol. They went out and repurposed their alcohol production capabilities in Arkansas, Kentucky, Texas, and West Virginia to make hand sanitizer. That's a big difference. And they've been unbelievable. They really have. Pernod Ricard. Their first delivery will be on Tuesday. It's going to go to various states. They're going to start, I think, in New York, and they're going to work their way around. They're making a tremendous amount of hand sanitizer at a very high level, too, by the way. We've activated the National Response Coordination Center to level 1. That's your highest level. This is the nerve center of all of our government response to crisis, and it's coordinating very closely with our nation's governors. Our nation's governors, many of you were at the call yesterday with the governors, and I think you can see the relationship, and we've had numerous calls with governors, by the way, but the relationships are pretty amazing. They're loving what we're doing, and the coordination between the federal government and the governors, states, and even local has been pretty incredible. FEMA Administrator Pete Gaynor, who is with us, will soon be providing you with an update on the center's operations, and FEMA's been incredible. We got them involved last week, very much involved, and now they're involved nationwide. We've dramatically expanded telehealth so Americans can see a doctor without leaving home, something which more and more people are using, and now they're really using it, and now the ones that are using it are loving it. And I think we're going to change the way our country functions medically and probably in other ways because of what's going on right now. This will reduce the chance of infection and preserve hospital capacity, so it solves a lot of problems. Every American has a role to play in defending our nation from this invisible, horrible enemy. It really is. It's an invisible enemy. And we will be successful, very successful, hopefully very much sooner than people would even think. So we say stay at home and save lives. There's a time of shared national sacrifice, but it's also a time to treasure our loved ones and to take stock of what is most important, our faith, our families, our neighbors, and our great country. And I want to thank all of the incredible people of our country, the citizens of our country, that what you've done and the way you're responding has just been very special, something that we will never forget, that the history books will never forget. And we're going to have a great victory. We're going to be celebrating a great victory in the not-too-distant future. And I just want to thank everybody. And now I'll introduce our Vice President, Mike Pence, who's led the task force. And I will tell you this, he has not slept much, maybe a tiny bit, maybe a little bit, but not much. And he's done an incredible job. Mike, thank you. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, all. And thank you, Mr. President. The White House Coronavirus Task Force met today. We briefed the President on our latest recommendations. We continue at the President's direction to lead not a whole of government approach, but a whole of America approach. You just heard the President describe one inspiring story after another, the way the American people are responding, the way American businesses are responding, religious communities across this country. The American people are coming together. They're responding with common sense, compassion, and generosity. People are heeding the advice of state and local authorities, and tens of millions of Americans are putting into practice 15 days to slow the spread. We are officially, Mr. President, 6 days into our 15 days. And as we look all across, while we strongly support decisions that governors in states where we have significant outbreak have taken, and we encourage every American to listen to those state and local authorities. For every American, this is what you can do to make a difference over the next week and a few days to protect your health, protect your family's health, but most especially slow the spread and the potential for the coronavirus to impact the most vulnerable. As the President said, we've almost been overwhelmed at the outpouring of support from American businesses. The President spoke yesterday to thousands of small businesses. We spoke to manufacturers yesterday. And in fact, as the President indicated, the FDA in record time just approved one manufacturer that will be producing millions of surgical masks in a matter of weeks for the American people. The pastors we spoke to, we want to thank all the religious leaders from every community of faith.
We're going to take a break from the President's announcements. Vice President is speaking and just kind of sharing some of the thoughts, but we're going to break away because Congressman Bruce Westerman is on a tight time schedule, and so we've got him just for a narrow window. Good afternoon, Congressman. Thank you for joining us on the Kim Hammer Show.
Hey, Kim. Thank you for having me on. It's good to be with you.
Well, for those that don't know, Congressman Westerman and I served in the House of Representatives in Arkansas. I think we started our first term together back in 2010, so I've had a chance to watch Congressman Westerman for about 2 terms, I think, before he decided to go to the higher office. And Bruce, I appreciate who you are as a person, who your family is in the community, and that you are a person of integrity. So thank you for joining us today.
Well, you know, the feeling's mutual on that, Kim, and always good to be with you and appreciate the work that you do. You know, I'm working from home here, and my dogs are barking at something, so I apologize if there's dog barks on the phone.
That's all right. We've had other people bark on the phone, so a dog's not going to matter, so it'll fit right in. But, hey, let me just start off by asking you, you know, there's the conspiracy theories that are floating around out there as far as this is, you know, trumped up, and it's just, you know, something that's being whipped up, and it's not as bad as they're portraying it to be. Of course, you throw the mix of the media in there. You know, they don't want to let a good story die. They're going to keep it, you know, kind of keep it antagonized a little bit. And so there's a little bit of a question I get from people as far as the legitimacy of what we're dealing with. You're up there in the middle of it. You're a person of integrity. I know you have high moral standards, values. So just give it to us from a congressman's perspective that would give people a sense of the idea how severe the COVID-19 virus really is.
Well, Kim, I hope we look back on this and say, you know, we overreacted. This didn't get nearly as bad as they were claiming it was going to get. I hope that's what we look back in hindsight and say, from a perspective as a member of Congress and what the federal government's doing, is we're trying to prepare for the worst but expect the best. I think that's what we should do in most situations. But this obviously has potential to be very bad. Just look at what's happening in Italy and what's happened in other parts of the world. And the big concern, and I think most people are aware of this, is that if we get a lot of cases happening all at once, and you get those people who need to be hospitalized, and we don't have enough beds and aren't able to provide the services for everyone that needs them. That's what we're trying to avoid. And when you hear people talk about bending the curve, they're trying to stop, or we're trying to stop that steep exponential increase in cases, because it's just statistics. As more people get it, even if it's a small number that need hospitalization, that number could greatly overwhelm our capacity.
That's we've had several conference calls as legislators here in the state this past week, and that was one of the concerns that was expressed by UAMS. In Arkansas alone, I think there was only 571 respirators, and the projection, is that as far as even just UAMS, that the number may go up significantly next week as this spreads. And the respirators and what they call the PPEs, for those that don't know, that's professional protection equipment, such as the masks, the gowns. Can you talk about the supply line of those essential needs to the hospitals and to the clinics, and what it's looking like from up there?
Yeah, and you mentioned conference calls. I've lost count of how many calls our delegation has had with different groups around the state, with hospitals, with Farm Bureau, with nursing homes. We had a call with the governor again yesterday, and constantly assessing the needs for the personal protection equipment. And it's not just in hospitals and healthcare workers, but you've got your essential services and keeping the supply chain going, especially for food and certain necessities. And you've got places like in processing facilities, food processing facilities, where it's hard to keep the social distancing. So those workers need PPE there as well. There's been a tremendous surge in demand for this equipment, obviously. And unfortunately, most of this equipment was made overseas, so it's harder to get. But we have companies that are gearing up to produce more equipment and get that in the supply chain as soon as possible. I think that will take care of itself eventually, but it is a huge concern right now. And that's one reason that you're seeing elective surgeries and procedures being canceled in hospitals, because when you do any kind of a surgery, it takes a lot of that PPE. So if there's some service that you don't have to perform in a hospital right now and you can postpone that frees up more PPE for this critical time period. But I've had manufacturers in my district call me and want me to pass information along to say that we can convert and start making PPE if necessary. And it's amazing how Americans really come together during these times, and everybody's wanting to help. So we pass that information along to the task force at the White House, and their massive plans are being mobilized to get this stuff made and get it made as soon as possible. We have companies in Arkansas, distilleries, that are actually converting their production into making hand sanitizer. So there's a lot of stuff happening. It just takes some time to get everything rolling.
Well, and it's always nice to hear your state referenced in a positive way by the president. That was one thing he mentioned a while ago about the distilleries, and he called out Arkansas specifically, along with a couple other states that are, converting their operations, and that speaks to the that speaks to the character of the businesses. I'd almost use it like an analogy. It's like we are gearing up for war, and everybody's having to adapt their equipment and their lines, which will keep people working and keep people employed. That's the good thing. Let me ask you about this. And the vice president just mentioned 195,000 individuals have been tested in the U.S. As far as the testing devices themselves, the testing kits, can you speak to that as far as the increased flow? I know Monday they're going to speak specifically about the equipment that's coming, but do you know specifically anything about the testing kits?
Well, there's different kinds of testing kits. There's been a lot of regulatory relief on who can do the testing, what labs can do them. We've got private labs doing them. We got DHS in their labs here in Arkansas, they're doing them. One of the issues that maybe hasn't been talked about as much is it's not necessarily doing the test, but it's getting the test processed and getting results back in time. So things are happening to try to get tests out there that can be read quicker and to get more capacity online to read the results once the tests are done. But that's been the very first bill that we passed in Congress to deal with this, that $8.3 billion spending package. About half of that was aimed at testing and getting more tests available and getting the capacity to handle the test. So that's again, that's ramping up, and we're seeing more and more testing taking place. We've got several places in Arkansas with the drive-through testing, and we've also got online assessment websites and toll-free numbers you can call if you think you've got symptoms, so that they can prioritize who needs to get the test. So that's ramping up. Nothing like this is ever as fast as everybody would like to see, but it's a huge undertaking when you look at the whole country is under a national emergency declaration, and it's not just here in Arkansas; it's everywhere. That's got a sudden surge for supply of this PPE equipment and testing facilities.
Okay, let me ask you, and can you hang on through the bottom of the hour? What's your time frame?
Yeah, I've got a few more minutes, and I actually was on the call with a constituent during the president's address, so I missed what they were saying today.
Okay, let me ask you as we go, because I'll need to take a break at the bottom of the hour. But you talked about the bills. There, if I've got my information right, there are already 2 bills that have been passed. There's one more coming down the line. Is that right? A package of 3 bills.
Yeah, at least one more coming down the line. That's the one the Senate's working on right now, that they're talking about having it voted on early next week. And at that point, we'll have to, as House members, we'll have to go back and vote.
Okay, and can you speak to the content of what's in that bill? Because the small businesses, they're obviously nervous, and I understand that maybe the third package has a real boost to the small businesses. Or can you speak to the content of what's coming down in it, provided there's no amendments attached to it before it gets back to y'all?
Yeah, well, there's obviously going to be amendments. The first draft's been put out, and everybody's going through it, and we're taking all this feedback we're getting from our districts and sending that back to D.C. so that the senators who are working on the bill can make adjustments to it. The hope is that when the Senate passes it, there will be very few modifications that the House needs to make, so that we won't spend a lot of days up there debating the bill. So most of the debate and negotiating is taking place on the Senate side, just like in the previous bill that we passed. Most of the negotiations took place on the House side. But it is more relief directly for individuals and for businesses. And there's been people out there critiquing this, saying, this is socialism. The government shouldn't be stepping in to help individuals or businesses. But, I look at this like the function of the federal government when we're in a crisis situation like this. And if you look at why our country, why the states established a federal government, and just look at the preamble to the Constitution, it said to establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure these blessings of liberty. Well, if this were a foreign army attacking our country, the checkbook would be wide open, and we would spend everything we had and didn't have to protect against a foreign enemy. And this virus is kind of like that. It's not anything that any American brought upon themselves.
Okay. Hey, Bruce, I got to interrupt you.
Music.
Yep, you hear the music. All right. Thank the sponsors. You'll be back after bottom of the hour. Edwards, Baxley, Penfield, Mouty, Everett, and Duck's Garage. Come back in about 3 minutes to the Kim Hammer Show. Congressman Bruce Westerman.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, CEO and founder of Wesley Financial Group. We started the timeshare campaign.
Hey, welcome back to the Kim Hammer Show. Appreciate all of our sponsors that are making the show possible. Edwards Food Store. I was in there this morning, and they were stocking the shelves as I spoke. There wasn't a lack of anything. They even had the toilet paper and the paper goods. They were getting taken off the shelf pretty quick while they're putting them on, but they were staying stocked up. So Edwards Food Store, kudos to you for the great job that you're doing during this time. Baxley, Penfield, Mouty, real estate still has to sell, still has to be bought. You're looking for good real estate in Central Arkansas, contact Baxley, Penfield, Mouty. There in Saline County. They will take care of you on all of your needs, commercial, residential, or even rental property. Everett GMC Buick, cars still need to be bought, cars still need to be serviced. They've got some really, really good deals going on right now, especially with the financing and what the big motor plants are doing, especially GMC. So it's a good time to go shop and get a really good deal on a car, get your car serviced or worked on. And then Duck's Garage down there in Benton, they'll take care of your car in the meantime. If you're not going to go buy a new car, you need somebody to work on the one you got. Go down and see Duck's Garage down there in Benton on Air Lane Drive. And I just want to mention that all four of those businesses I just mentioned are all family owned. And this is a time we need to be supporting our small businesses more than ever because they need us, and we want them there when the crisis is over. So just keep that in mind and support all those if you would. We have on air Congressman Bruce Westerman, who's joining us from his home because he's in for a break, but also practicing some social distancing, and we appreciate that. And Bruce, you were talking about the third, and no disrespect if I call you Bruce, we got into that relationship when we served
fine.
in the House.
Yeah.
So, but you were talking about the third bill that's coming down the pike, and can you go ahead and pick up where you left off talking about it, especially as it relates to small businesses?
Yeah, this is looking for direct assistance to workers who have been laid off, direct assistance to small businesses and large businesses alike. It's they're talking about it being somewhere in the neighborhood of a $1 trillion package. I'm constantly looking at what's going into the bill and what's in the written language right now. I think it's something we've got to be careful with. There's a possibility this could be over in a month. It may be 2 or 3 months, but I think we have to look at the timing on how much money we're putting into the economy at one time. We need to make sure we've got help there for people when they need it. I think there's things we can do as far as like loans and being able to extend when people make payments on loans and stuff like that, that can be as big a benefit to folks as direct cash payments. But there's certainly going to be a need for people to get cash to buy the necessities of life and to keep their families operating, as well as keep businesses going.
And when you talk about small business, I'm getting calls from all my small businesses, and some of those are small businesses that employ 100 to 125, and some of them are down to those that employ 5, 10. So the package that's coming down, is it going to be universal in that it would help those that are employing the 5 to 10 versus those that are employing the upward? Even of the GMC plant now that is suspended, or not GMC, I think all three of them suspended production or limited it. So who is that going to get down to help?
Well, when we're talking about direct assistance, it won't matter, what size company you work for. Right now, we're looking at the latest I heard was people with yearly income under $99,000. But again, that could change. Actually, the second bill that we passed, it was focused more on employees and employers of businesses with 500 or less employees. And the reason we looked at that in the second package, and again, this was one that House Democrats drafted, and we had to negotiate the best deal we could on it to get it over to the Senate. But it had the emergency sick leave in it. It had the family and medical leave in it, and the the idea behind that was to give people relief who get infected by COVID-19, who have family members who are infected and they need to they're either quarantined or need to be home taking care of them, and also people whose child care has been interrupted because of school closures or daycare closures, and they have to be there taking care of their kids. Most companies over 500 employees have some kind of a sick leave or extended family leave program, which a lot of the smaller businesses don't have that. So that the intent of that was to be able to provide those services, and then those businesses get reimbursed through a tax credit. But what we're hearing is a lot of issues with liquidity and cash flow, and those are the things that we hope to address in this third bill, is how to keep the cash flow to these companies so they can actually stay open. Some of them are saying, a tax credit is not going to help me because I don't have the cash flow if we're not operating our business to make these payments on the front end, which that's totally reasonable. So a lot of this would come in the form of loans from the Small Business Administration and other programs that are out there.
What about the environment on the Hill? You mentioned about Democrats drafted the second bill. How is the working environment among the parties on the Hill as far as laying aside some of the rhetoric and really working together as a team to get Americans what they need?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more cooperation right now in doing that. And if you just back up a month or a month and a half ago, and it seems like an eternity ago that the whole country was focused on impeachment and all the rhetoric building up to the 2020 election. And if it seems like this may have thrown a little bit of ice water on the political rhetoric, and people are really working together because, again, this isn't a Republican virus. It's not a Democrat virus. It's really not even an American virus. It's a virus coming from a foreign land, and we're all working together to do what's best to try to help our country. Now, that doesn't mean that I haven't seen some things come along that are, I think, totally unnecessary to put in a bill like this. Some things where people may be trying to take advantage of a situation to move some political agenda, but hopefully we'll weed that out and get legislation that's the best it can be to actually help the American people.
All right. I don't want to take up much more of your time because I know you got a family and other constituents, but let me just ask you a couple quick points, and I'll just give you open mic to talk about anything else you want to share. So as far as where this originated, and maybe this is extreme, but this is some of, what has been expressed to me. Do we, it started over in China. Do they owe us anything for not getting on this as quickly as they should? Or did they do, to your knowledge, that you're able to talk about it, did they do everything within their power in order to get it under control? And what is the talk on the Hill along that subject line?
Well, I think there'll be a lot more analysis of this down the road where we look back and see where the shortcomings were. I think it's pretty well known that the Chinese sat on this longer than they should have, that we probably lost weeks, if maybe not even a month or more, in response time to it. And I think we'll have to deal with that appropriately down the road. But one thing I really hope this has done has opened our eyes to our dependence on a supply chain from China and other foreign countries. And there are certain areas like pharmaceuticals and this PPE equipment, and really the list gets longer and longer on things that we probably need to have a better domestic supply chain. So I think you'll see policies coming down the road in the future that try to account for any kind of situation like this that we might face again. And hopefully we'll learn lessons about, getting our supply chain spread out too far around the world.
Well, and that is one thing I heard one of the congressmen or senators say about the, one of the packages or, what they're going to address coming down the road is to give incentives to U.S. companies to bring those type of needs back, even the pharmaceutical, because when you look at how much is produced over in China from the pharmaceutical side of things, it does make us vulnerable. And trying to be positive, if this virus was a good wake-up call for us to realize that we need to become more independent from China as far as bringing those things back. Who knows what the future holds? That now may be a good warning to what might have to be done later. The president, in just conclusion, mentioned that are going to give time for the tax pay. The tax deadline is going to be extended from April 15th to July 15th without any penalties or interest. So they're going to be pushing that back. Talked about FHA. Mortgages will be postponed as far as repossessions for 60 days. And then in the educational department, the standardized testing is going to be postponed. So it seems like the administration and seems like they are trying to do everything within their power to take the steps that they can that would help immediately. Now, is there anything else that you know of that's on the table that might be getting a look that would come down the line?
Yeah, there's a ton of things that the administration can do administratively, like those things you just put out there. And it's amazing. You know, we think of these big things like the tax filing deadline, but stuff like the FMCSA that regulates trucking. They have requirements on truckers getting physicals and all these renewal things. You know, trucking is an essential service, and if people can't get physicals and can't get their license renewed, you can create all kinds of problems in the supply chain. So just even small things like that, where the administration can go in and suspend rules and give exemptions. There's a ton of stuff like that happening under this emergency declaration that people may not be aware of. But those are the kind of issues that I'm sure you're hearing it as a state legislator, and we're hearing it as in the federal delegation, of where people need relief so that they can actually perform the services that they're there to perform.
Very good. Congressman Bruce Westerman has been on the Kim Hammer Show today, and Bruce, really appreciate you. Tell your wife and family, appreciate you giving up the time to be on the radio. I know you're home, so hope you get to enjoy some time with your family. Anything you want to say in conclusion, or anything you want to share with the listening audience?
Well, Kim, it's always good to visit with you, but everybody needs to remember this is, go back a month ago, we had a roaring economy, low unemployment. The fundamentals of our economy are good. We self-imposed this, trying to save people's lives and stop the overall detriment to the economy in the long run. And we're going to weather this storm. We don't know exactly how long it'll be, but we'll weather the storm and things will come back. But right now, people need to do their part in, staying out of as many public situations as you can. The social distancing, washing your hands, not touching your face, doing all those things that's being asked of people to do right now is very important to decrease the length of this cycle. So I can't encourage people enough for that. And I know that people are looking a lot at the federal government, but Governor Hutchinson and you guys in the state legislature have got a big job to do as well. That delaying federal tax payments, that's a big thing. But when you delay the tax date for the state of Arkansas still has a balanced budget that you guys have to operate under. So that could cause cash flow problems on the state level. So there's no end of situations that are being caused by this virus, and together we'll get through it all.
All right. Hey, I want to give you one idea to look at, and this is just kind of brainstorming. If we're going to go ahead and pay on time on April 15th, if you're going to delay it to July 15th, wish you guys would talk about, for those of us that are able to pay by April 15th, give us a discount. And maybe that helps stimulate the economy a little bit, and that we get to keep more money in our pocket and spend it. And maybe you could, one good thing, when this is all said and done, I hope that y'all don't let things go back to business as usual. You'll take advantage of the window of opportunity to curtail some things that we've been fighting for, because if we're able to survive this, we should be able to survive going forward. So, Bruce Westerman,
That's right.
Congressman, Appreciate you very much, and thank you for taking time for your family. And I know the listening audience is a lot smarter for having listened to you. I hope to catch up with you soon.
Have a good weekend, Kim. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to be joined now by Dr. Maria Markham, who is the Director of Higher Ed. And we're also going to be joined by Shane Broadway, former Speaker of the House, but now works for the Arkansas State University system, which has a big presence in this part of the state. Before we get him on the radio, I just want to say thank you to our sponsors, which are Edwards Food Store here in Central Arkansas and over in East Arkansas, Baxley Penfield Mowdy Realtors down in Saline County, and Everett's GMC Buick down there in Saline County, as well as Duck's Garage, located on Airlane Drive. One thing I do want to make you aware of, tomorrow, the church that I pastor, which is Saline Missionary Baptist Church in a community called Tull, Tull, outside of Benton, we are going to suspend our services tomorrow, and I will be broadcasting the message here live at noon tomorrow here on 101.1 FM or on my Facebook page. You can watch Facebook Live. We're going to just present the message so that we can do what we've been asked to do as a church, and that is just to practice the social distancing in order to help break this cycle in the next 2 weeks. So I'll be presenting the message, and the message is going to be how to be positive in challenging times. How to be positive in challenging times will be the message tomorrow here at noon. I'll be presenting it to my church family and invite you to be the extended family tomorrow at noon. All right, so we have Dr. Marie Markham, Director of Higher Ed on the radio or online. We're practicing social distancing here in the studio, but also Shane Broadway, who is with the Arkansas State University system. Thank you all both for joining me on the Kim Hammer Show today. Are you both there?
We're here.
Good deal.
We're here. We're here. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you for being on.
Thank you, Senator.
Hey, let me just ask Dr. Markham, first of all, if you want to give a little sneak preview as far as anything personally about your family so people have a little bit of a comfort level that they would know who it is that's heading up higher ed here in the state. If you want to just take a minute and talk about yourself, about your family, or about your credentials and such as that.
Absolutely. So I've been with the Division of Higher Education for almost 4 years now. I'm an Arkansas girl, born and raised, educated in public schools in Arkansas, K through 12, and then I graduated from Henderson State University 2 times, actually, before I went out of state to get my PhD. I'm married. I have 5 young children who are now being educated at home for the next several weeks. And then I have another baby on the way in a few months. So definitely practicing some social distancing, brushing up on my K-12 education, and trying to keep everybody well and safe.
And you certainly are adding to the public school system as far as the number. So thank you for that on behalf of that, and hope you have a safe maternity time, and just look forward to a beautiful baby coming in the world. Shane, how about yourself real quick?
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate you having me. I grew up here in Saline County. Went to Arkansas State University. Actually wanted to be a sportscaster, and that's why I ended up in Jonesboro, but fell in love with the place and came back to Saline County, though, and had the honor of representing Saline County for 14 years in the Arkansas House and Senate prior to your service, and grateful to you and your willingness to serve and represent our community, and served just 4 years after that in Dr. Markham's position as director of the then Department of Higher Ed. Now, I guess we're Division of Higher Ed.
Very good. So
we
y'all
came back to ASU.
Very good. So let me just ask y'all both. Tell me about the impact of the COVID-19 on the higher ed system. Now, are all the campuses in the state now shut down and doing classes online?
Well, I'll start out talking about what we're doing kind of as a state. I would say that we've had a mixed response. So everything that can be migrated into an online distance learning environment has been done. So most of our institutions have their campuses remain open. Of course, they're closed this week for spring break. They would have been closed anyway. But we have moved all of our students who are in physical face-to-face classes into online that can be. Now, we have some, of course, technical programs that, it's really difficult to teach somebody how to weld online. So we have institutions that are being really innovative about how they're bringing students on campus in very small groups to allow them to continue their training. But, keeping that number to one or two at a time on an appointment type basis. And then, we have some students who are in situations that they can't graduate unless they get those clinical hours in. So they're out there with our healthcare workers continuing clinical rotations as we speak. Campuses, for the most part, have remained open, providing those essential services to students if they need to continue to stay in their residential housing. Some have completely shut their dorms down, but others have allowed exceptions for students that may be homeless if they were to leave, or they're international students who can't return home. They don't have any other place to go. And because of that, they're continuing food service and some of the other essential services to keep those students healthy and safe during this time. So I guess my answer to that is we've got a mix. It depends on where they are in the state, what the spread of the disease has been, and everything that has been moved to distance learning has been moved.
So let me ask you, and Shane, being the representative of the ASU system, you can kind of shed some light on this, but when you think about the impact of the sports programs have all been shut down and how that has affected the revenue side of things, whether it's the sports side of things or any other components of the higher ed, as far as the financial impact to the institution themselves, can you all kind of enlighten us a little bit about that?
Oh, I would say other than the sport activities and the activities, we have a new hotel and convention center on campus at Jonesboro. Obviously, they've been impacted. But it's a public-private partnership. It's not owned by the institution, but they've obviously had a number of conferences and hotel rooms canceled. The fortunate thing, if there is a fortunate piece of this, is that you're in the spring sports where there's not a lot of revenue generated. Fall sports, basketball, football are your revenue generators from an athletic standpoint. So you're not really losing a lot in terms of that, but you do have a lot of events that would have occurred on campus, concerts, recitals that bring people to town, and like that really will have an impact as the days and weeks go on. But we haven't seen a direct financial impact. I think the thing we're certainly working with, and the thing I want to applaud you, Senator, as well as everybody at the state and federal level. You had Congressman Westerman on. Everybody from the delegation has been in contact with our institutions this week. We had a conference call. Dr. Maria Markham and Dr. Welch set up a week ago where we had all the presidents and chancellors on the line with the Department of Health. So everybody had the same information at the same time. We all talked about various decisions we might have to make so that we're all in concert together of trying to deal with some of those issues. So everybody at the federal level, state level, governor, health department, everyone has been fantastic in terms of checking in with us, asking questions, seeing what help we might need. And that's really kind of been our focus. Besides shifting to online instruction, is you've got little issues that come up. Dr. Markham sent out an email the other day about Wi-Fi. Some of the students, when they go home, don't have access to the internet. They don't have Wi-Fi. And with McDonald's and Starbucks, a lot of businesses closing to dine-in services, students who normally could have gone in there and done their class on their Wi-Fi can't. And so we've tried to, she's helped to coordinate with all the campuses that have Wi-Fi that they can shoot out into their parking lots. So you're practicing social distancing, but students can still take their classes online, sitting in their car in a parking lot. So this has all brought up a lot of issues that uncharted territory, none of us expected. So it's hard to tell the revenue impact yet, but we know there will be some.
You talked about that, and you'll be proud of this, Shane, because it's your home school. I was talking to Superintendent Karen down there at Bryant, and they have actually purchased hotspots for their students that do not have access to the internet so that they can, continue their education, which is the good thing about all this going on. There's some creative juices that are occurring that haven't, been displayed before, and it's kind of pushing us all to work together to do things we otherwise might not have thought that we needed to do. Director Markham, or Dr. Markham, let me ask you, how do you see this reshaping the future of higher ed education? What are some of the lessons we're going to take away from this that we'll be able to apply to the future?
Well, I think kind of to echo Shane's comment, this is very much uncharted territory. Our institutions have emergency plans for just about any scenario. We know what to do in an active shooter threat. We know what to do when a tornado hits our campus. But, the idea of needing to shut down for this long had really not been, especially at a statewide level, had not been explored. So issues with connectivity, we definitely will continue those conversations. We've been so lucky that all of our higher ed partners have just opened up their Wi-Fi access and said, come on to our parking lots and let's have class together. I think that there will be, we've had online education available for a long time. So students who wanted that option have had it. The difficulty right now is we've got students who are now being thrust into that environment who didn't want that type of education. And we've got faculty members who've never been in this world who are now asked within a matter of a few weeks to move all of their content online. So it definitely opens up some training opportunities for faculty. We may see some students who absolutely love this format and they decide, maybe I want to save some money and I want to live at home and I don't want to do the on-campus experience anymore. I don't think we'll see quite as much of that as some have speculated, because there is a difference in the experience that you receive in virtual learning versus on campus. I think one of the more immediate impacts we'll see now that we seem to be in a recession, our two-year colleges are probably going to see a pretty big boost in enrollment in the fall. That's my prediction. Typically, their enrollment mirrors unemployment and economic conditions in an inverse. So we'll probably see a good number of students who have been laid off or have realized that their skills don't allow them to work remotely in this situation, returning to their two-year colleges for some additional training. Hopefully it won't have a huge impact on our four-year universities, but we will expect to see some bump on the two-year side.
That'll also help boost the career tech classes, I would imagine. You kind of hit on a minute ago, because the skill sets, as these companies around here are retooling to be innovative to meet the needs, is going to require an even greater workforce, a trained workforce. So that'll be good. I'm down to the last minute, but give me a 30-second update on Henderson State University. Dr. Markham, you graduated there. Shane, that's now in the ASU system. 30 seconds. Have we got it going in the right direction down there?
I would say we're headed in the right direction. It's going to take a considerable amount of time and patience on behalf of everyone. And we appreciate Dr. Markham and her team for all they've done to help assist us thus far. It's going to be about a 3 to 5 year window to try to get things turned around. But yes, we believe we're headed in the right direction.
Well, appreciate that very much. I know y'all have taken on a big task, and it seems like it's going in the right direction. So for all those that have graduated from Henderson, be proud, because it's going in the right direction. Appreciate that. Thank you all for joining me. I may get you back on in about a month. We'll see how things are going. Graduations are postponed indefinitely real quick, or are we still waiting?
Not everywhere. We haven't made that decision yet. We're going to kind of watch and see for the next few weeks and then make some decisions.
Good deal.
But some
all right.
have.
Very good. All right. I appreciate y'all being on the show today. That's been Dr. Marie Markham and also Shane Broadway. Dr. Markham is the Director of Higher Ed. Shane is the ASU, works with ASU system. Appreciate them being on. Want to thank my sponsor, Edwards, Baxley, Penfield, Mountie, Everett, Ducks Garage. Remember, tomorrow at noon, I'll be preaching to my church on the radio here at noon. Living in challenging times.
101.1 FM. The Answer. KDXE FM. Kamak Village, Little Rock. A Salem Media Group station. 101.1 FM. The Answer.